We are live here at the Joe Torre Safe at Home annual Celebrity Golf and Tennis Classic. It's been going on, obviously, for a long time. We've been happy to be partners with them. More than 20 years ago, Joe and his wife, Allie, founded Safe at Home to end the cycle of violence and abuse through education. They sought out to create a world where every young person feels safe, supported, and empowered. The values of positive role modeling, leadership, teamwork, and respect Joe modeled throughout his baseball career. It's been their mission. And Safe at Home's groundbreaking Margaret's Place program, named in honor of Joe's beloved mother, creates safe spaces in schools to provide intervention and prevention services to students who are impacted by violence and abuse. It is an honor to welcome to the show Mr. Joe Torre. Joe, how you doing today?
Sal, how are you?
Yeah, not bad. You're fresh off an All-Star appearance. How'd it feel to have the uniform back on?
You know, it goes back 2 years ago. I was going around in spring training with MLB, and we always meet with all the teams, and I'm sort of a spectator in that. And then I get a call from Aaron Boone. I'm in Arizona. And I thought he butt dialed me or something, and I called back, and he says, "You planning on visiting us?" I said, "Yeah, I'm going to stop by." He says, "How about putting on the uniform?" And I said, "Thank you, but no, I'm not interested." Well, when I went to visit, I'm sitting in with the coaches, Guidry and Willie Randolph, and he really wanted me to, put the uniform on, and I wound up putting the uniform on. And my feeling was, I know what spring training's about. I know the manager has a lot on his, plate, and I just didn't want to be in the way. Only because I know how much work goes into it. So he convinced me, and then the players were very welcoming, and that was pretty cool. So I spent 3 or 4 days, and then I did it again this past spring. And then when I was sitting there in the dugout this past spring, and Booney sits next to me, he says, "How would you like to be a coach for me in the All-Star game?" And I said, "Well, let me check with the powers to be, because I don't want to violate anything." He says, "I've already done that." I said, "Oh, okay." And I was, I was a little off guard, but I was excited about it, and and it was fun. It really, the game itself was dynamite, and hanging with the players. And the one thing, Sal, that I came to terms with was the fact that the players, obviously I was with the American League team in the clubhouse and the day before, and working out, and I think the game's in good hands. Let's put it that way, and that made me feel good.
So making the pitching change, going out there in front of the Atlanta crowd, which I know obviously you were there a long time with the Atlanta Braves, player, manager, all that stuff there. How did that feel to be a part of the Hank Aaron celebration? Did that make it even more special to have the uniform on a night like that in Atlanta?
Yeah, I mean, my career started with the Braves, and I was a member of the Milwaukee Braves when we moved to Atlanta in '66. And it always feels right, because that's where it all started for me. And my brother played with the Milwaukee Braves before I did, and so it was something I was comfortable with. And of course, Hank Aaron, batting behind him for 8 years was pretty special to do. But and the fact that it was Atlanta, and I played in an All-Star game in Atlanta in the original ballpark, and then I managed an All-Star game in Turner Field, and then I was able to coach at their new Truist Park. So it was pretty special for me. And
if memory serves correct, you won some pretty big World Series games down there as a manager as well in Atlanta.
Yeah, well, it was crazy. '96, we lose the 2 at home, and then we go down there and sweep them in their ballpark. And then when we faced them in '99, we opened on the road and we beat them the 2 games there. And don't ask me how it happens, except that we were a pretty good road team in those postseason games.
All right, so tell me about the foundation here. I got plenty of other stuff I want to get into, specifically with the All-Star game that took place a couple nights ago. But where are we at with the foundation? Happy with the way everything's been going for over 20 years now?
Well, I'm happy that we're reaching these kids. We know what we do with Margaret's Place, which she named after my mom, and it's a safe safe room in schools, and we have a master's level counselor. But our society now, I think it's more necessary with prevention than ever before. I mean, role models are so important for us, but we're fortunate. We got 30 programs. We're on the West Coast, we're on the East Coast. We have one program in Cincinnati, and believe it or not, we have 2 in Tahiti. So we have over 20,000 kids a year that come in contact with our program, and I think it's just too important not to have it.
Is this something you're just going to continue doing the rest of your life?
I hope so. I hope beyond that. To me, because of the program and because of how important, especially in nowadays, where we need to make sure that we have role models out there for these kids, and let them know. Say if domestic violence is going on in their home, that just because it's the only male role model you may have doesn't mean you do the same thing, and you just want to put kids in a good place, because there's so many kids that come in, and I was one of them. I had the good fortune of having the ability to play baseball, so I had a place to hide from what was going on in my home. But these kids come in and they don't have that self-esteem, and if you send them out in society nowadays, there are some bad people out there. Somebody will put their arm around them, say, "Come with me," and maybe give them some money, and all of a sudden they're trusting somebody they shouldn't trust. So, we feel very good about what we do and how the kids leave our program. So we hope we can sustain this and then, hand it off to the next group of people that will continue this for whenever.
I think it's an incredibly important cause, and you guys have done a great job with it for over 20 years. Like you said, we're honored to be a part of it and be a continued partner with you with this. Okay, so the All-Star Game, Jeter, you caught up with him. What's your relationship like with Derek currently? I know he famously calls you Mr. T. He's doing the broadcasting now. You keep in touch with him a lot. It looks like you guys were exchanging pleasantries down there on the field before the game. Where's your relationship at with Jeter?
It's we don't obviously stay in touch every day or every week, but when you do stay in touch, it's like it's supposed to be this way. I had the same relationship with Bob Gibson. Once we stopped playing together and stuff. But it's very warm. It's very comfortable. He'll always check in on me, and I'll do the same, because he's got a big family now, and, he likes his life, and I'm happy for him. And he does a good job, obviously. Whatever he would do, I'm a little biased, but whatever he would do a good job because he cares a great deal about it.
All right, I hit you with the softballs. Now I got to get into it here.
Fire away.
I've been critical of Major League Baseball the last couple of days, and I'll give you the 2 points why. Number one, your special assistant is still Commissioner Manfred and all that stuff.
I'm not. I don't have that position. What I do now is I'm still connected, and if Rob, can't be 2 places at one time, I'll go to the other place. But as they said in The Few Good Men, I have absolutely no responsibility whatsoever.
Okay, so I'll take it easy on you.
No.
Okay.
Fire away. I still have an opinion on things.
How the hell is Juan Soto not representing baseball at the All-Star Game? Come on, Mr. T. He's a huge star. He's got the numbers. Yankees in the World Series a year ago, signs with the Mets with the mega contract. All the numbers back it up. Don't you think it would benefit the sport to figure out a way to get Juan Soto at the All-Star Game?
Yes.
And how was he not there?
I don't know, but you can go from city to city and they have the same argument. I mean, Philadelphia, they had a couple of pitchers who were overlooked that have done a great job.
But they're not Juan Soto.
Well, I understand that. No, so I'm a Juan Soto fan. I got to know him a little bit not this past spring, the spring before, and he was with the Yankees. He's got a great personality. He may be one of the best hitters I've ever seen in the game. He doesn't swing and miss very often. I haven't got an answer. Did he deserve to be, with his numbers and just his presence,
biggest market,
which is what you're talking about? Did he have, deserve to be there? Sure.
Well, trying to grow the game, you would think it would benefit them by having one of the big stars there.
Yeah, again, but there are other players beside him, and I know it's a big market. It's New York and all that stuff, and I can't disagree with anything you're saying, Sally, but it's I managed in 6 All-Star games. And trust me, everybody, in spite of the excitement of managing, you're always going to have somebody saying you shortchanged me here or there. And that's what it amounted to.
We talked about this yesterday. Actually, I had Terry Collins on the show, David Wright, having his numbers retired this weekend with the Mets. So we were talking about this a little bit. And he managed the All-Star game in 2016. Obviously, you managed many All-Star games with all the years your Yankees were in the World Series and winning most of them, as a matter of fact. But it's different now where Booney's not picking the players, right? The voting is from the players. Obviously, the fans vote in for the starters. Then the players are voting, I guess, in large part with the reserve players. You like the way the voting system is at right now? I guess there's no perfect way. Where are you at with the voting system?
I was saying to Booney, it's not as much fun for you as it was for me. I mean, as simple as that. Because I had a lot, as manager, you had a lot more say. And now it's, it's like, as you say, the fans, they'll vote for the starting lineup. And you get to place some opinions. There's no question you can do that. But you only have so much of a roster, and Booney, I think, still had a good time. And this whole thing about my changing pitchers was really funny because it just came about. He says, Joe, he said, you willing to go out there because this Smith is going to come in as soon as he gets an out? I'm going to go get him. I said, sure. I said, if I fall down halfway, come get me, man. But no, it's exciting for me. I mean, I went out to the mound to take the pitcher out, and I looked around, and there's Bobby Witt Jr. and all these guys standing there, and I said, I haven't done this for years, guys, and it was great. I really appreciated what Booney did for me, and it was a fun time.
Do the current players understand your impact on the game, or you think that they're too young? I mean, some of these guys are 20 years old. You were having great success with the Yanks 30 years ago.
That's a good question because I didn't know that, and and then all of a sudden, Skugel comes up to me and wants to introduce himself and guys and it felt good. Yeah, I mean, it's good for my ego, but again, it's still that question I didn't know. I remember when I was a manager and John Kruk came up to me, and because when you're a manager, they think you were born and became a manager. They don't think you played the game. John Kruk came up to me. He says, you're a pretty good player. Which Krucky can only laugh because he's such a good guy. And I mean, first of all, I think players should be made aware of the history of our game. Because the game just didn't start. It's been around a while, and there's some great history, and your bubblegum cards come to life. It did for me when Willie Mays come on the scene. I was 10 years old. Little did I know that 10 years later I'm going to be trying to get him out. And but you meet these guys, and it never gets old.
God, that is insane. Like, even for me as a 45-year-old, I look at you primarily as the manager of the New York Yankees. I understand the history, and you as a player, obviously, with the Mets as well. But to hear you say you hit behind Hank Aaron, or you were trying to get Willie Mays out. Joe, your connection, I mean, that's a pretty significant connection when you're talking about the greats like Mays and Aaron, and then through your playing years and through the Yankee dynasty to being able to make a pitching change in the 2025 All-Star game. Good God, hard-pressed to find somebody that's had the baseball life that you have had that's still around to talk about it.
Booney said, do you want to say a few words to the players? I said, yeah, I would, because Booney has his meeting, as a manager, you have your meeting before the players go out to play. And I said, I want to give you a little background. I said, I played with the Braves, I played with the Cardinals, I played with the Mets, I managed the Mets, I managed the Braves, I managed the Cardinals. I was fired by all three of those teams. give him a background and just trying to be lighthearted, obviously, about it. And I told him how much I love the game, and I wasn't about to quit, even though, anytime you get fired, you realize somebody doesn't want you. Maybe you're not doing a good job. And, and then I got this World Series ring that my brother had way before I did when he was with the Braves in '57. And I just said the game always felt brand new to me, and it still does. And I'm thankful for that, because as far as I'm concerned, I never had to work a day in my life.
Incredible. All right, we're talking with Joe Torre live here at the Safe at Home Foundation, the annual Celebrity Golf and Tennis Classic. Two more for you, Mr. T, before we let you go.
Sure.
On the heels of batting behind Hank Aaron and Willie Mays and all this stuff, where does Aaron Judge rank as far as the great players that you've seen? Aaron
Judge is... Well, first of all, as an individual, he has a lot of Derek Jeter in him for me. It's not bells and whistles when he gets a hit. It's something that he was paid to do, and just his approach to the game, where he doesn't try to pull the ball, even though obviously he does on occasions, but he uses the whole field, which to me is really a good sign hitting wise. He's not going to be fooled. He's not afraid to let the ball get deep in there, and he strikes out, he walks away, but it's tough to not be fearful of this guy when he gets up to the plate. I don't see any weakness, and if he does have a spot, it's really tough for the pitcher to continue to exploit it.
Why do you think that there has been a drop-off from what he's done consistently in the regular season to a ridiculous level, maybe the greatest that the sport has ever seen, and then in the postseason just not matching?
You know what? You still have to understand, Sal, it's the human aspect. Everything speeds up. It's just like as a manager during the regular season, you lose, 5 games in a row. That's okay. We'll recover from that. In the postseason, I come to learn when I, all of a sudden had this thing happen every year, one game, all of a sudden puts you on the defensive, that the momentum is switched. So, it's tough to catch up. So when people rely on you, and I haven't talked about Aaron about this, when people rely on you and you have a responsibility, it means a lot. And I've seen Willie McCovey, not Willie McCovey, Willie Stargell go through the same thing with the Pirates, in the early 70s.
Schmidt struggled in the postseason.
You remember Gil Hodges back when, went 0 for 20 or something. It's just a responsibility that these players carry that sometimes, being human catches up with you.
You made me think of something where you were talking about, well, you lose 5 in a row, everything's going to be okay. You had George running things. Did you bust Booney's chops about Booney? You're all right. You could lose for 3 straight weeks. You're not going anywhere. Meanwhile, I had George breathing down my neck. You win 4 World Series in a row, and he still might want you out.
But, George never scared me because I've been fired 3 times already. What's he going to do to me? Fire me? And I had a good relationship with George. I think we just had one disagreement. One time, I have to tell you this, because when we'd go bad, I'd call him up and kidding. I'd say, what am I doing wrong? And I think they'd catch him off guard, and he'd say, you'll be all right. Don't worry about it. But I called him up one time, and he says, I wish you'd stop calling me because you have a way of talking me into things. But we had a good relationship. We had a good relationship. And, we talked about the first World Series in 96. After, I was excited about getting to the World Series. I had never been, other than watching from the stands. And we get killed in the first game. Pettit gets roughed up, and Maddox is pitching the second game, and George comes into my office before game 2. He says, "This is a must-win." And I said, "Yeah, I know." I said, "But we may lose today." And he looked at me, and I said, "Maddox is pitching." We hadn't played in a week, because we clinched the previous Sunday, and this was the next Monday. And I said, we're flat, and we haven't played. I said, we may even lose. Maddox pitching. Now I start messing with him. I said, but we're going to Atlanta. Yeah, I said, that's my town. We'll win 3 there for you, and then come back and win the World Series on Saturday. And that's what happened. But I certainly didn't have a crystal ball. I just happened to mess with him. And sometime later, I remember he repeated it to me. So I said, well, okay. He thought I was smart for some reason or other.
Right, now stay off my back a little bit. I just told you it was going to happen in the World Series. All right, swing off. Do you like it, the way that the All-Star game ended the other day with the swing off?
Initially, no. But again, because I'm an old fuddy-duddy. You play. Of course, I was the manager of the tie game in Milwaukee, don't forget.
Yeah, I do remember.
But
I remember you and Bud looking at each other like, what the hell are we supposed to do here?
Well, I felt some responsibility because Bob Brenly, I had always mentioned, because I had done it before, to save a starter that, you can talk to the starters before the game and get somebody to volunteer to be that guy in case you need a starter at the end in the tie game. And I never mentioned it to him, not that I kept from mentioning to him. I forgot. And so his pitcher only had pitched Sunday, and he could only pitch one inning. And I had one that was fully rested the whole, for 5 innings. So it just happened that, we ran into a roadblock in that regard. It was embarrassing for Bud Selig, which I felt badly about. But having this home run thing at the end of the game, the players seemed to like it. They all jumped out on the field. They're all pulling for the other guy. And, okay. And I shrugged, but it wasn't my thing because it's not baseball. But it was entertaining, and that's where we are at this point in time in the game of baseball.
The last one, I promise. Who would have gotten your vote for All-Star Game MVP?
Who would have gotten that? Depending on who won.
Well, okay, but the National League comes back and wins it with the swing off. Schwarber did get it in that swing off, where you had Alonso hit the three-run.
Alonso hit the 3-run homer. He stuck out for me. He really did. And then I watched Google. He gave up 3 hits. I don't think he gave up 3 hits in his life in one inning. But Alonso to me was the one that I would pinpoint on that.
Well, it was a talking point a little bit yesterday. Met fans, I know, were a little bit upset with that, but they gave the MVP to a guy who hit 3 home runs in the swing off against a batting practice pitcher, as opposed to Alonso hitting a 3-run homer in the game off an all-star. I mean, there's a big difference there.
Yeah, but what have you done for me lately? and that's where we are. We want instant gratification on what happens right now. And, I had no trouble with Schwarber because I really enjoy the way he plays the game. When he first caught my attention with the Cubs, and he's a leader type guy, and I'm happy for him, even though he probably would turn it over to Alonso if you asked him.
Joe, it's always a pleasure and honor to sit here and talk baseball with you, a true legend. So for me, it's an honor, and we're happy to be a part of this great cause. Joe Torre, Safe at Home, annual Celebrity Golf and Tennis Classic, a great charity. We look forward to having some of your former players on here and everybody else that you got here, but have a great day, and we do appreciate and best of luck with everything.
Sal, WFAN has been wonderful to us, and we really appreciate your presence here. And as far as our foundation, joetorre.org, they get all the information they want, and I really appreciate your presence here, guys. Thank you.
Hey, you invite us, we're going to be here. We promise that. That's cool. Joe Torre.